Today, I want to talk to you about the future, which is always a risky proposition. One thing I can say for sure is, whenever the future shows up, it's 99% made out of the present, plus a few key innovations. So let me begin by spending a couple of minutes talking about how we got to where we are before I talk about where this is all going. Communications has always been at the core of innovation and growth. People figure out products and prices in the communication of the marketplace. Science moves forward by peer review and publishing. From telegraphs to the web, communications technology has helped create the unprecedented boom in global living standards. This is particularly true in the era of networked communications. Metcalfe's law states that the value of a telecommunications network is proportional to the square of the number of connected users in that system. So, with a quick example, what this means is having 8 people connected instead of 2 isn't just 4 times more valuable, but actually it's 32 times more valuable. This is how companies like eBay, Facebook, and Google got so big so quickly. There's more value if there are more players promoting more interactions. And those communications, they need to be managed. When markets are simple, management of communications is straightforward. However, for everyone here, working in the context of a modern company, the reality is corporate complexity. Many stakeholders dispersed over a big geography, communicating in all sorts of ways: phone, video, IM, documents, social media. How do you manage something like that? At Google, not surprisingly, we view the question of how do you enable people to communicate effectively as an information organization problem. And we tackle that by baking lots of smart technology into our cloud computing, a global network that carries more than 1/4 of the internet and supports 6 businesses with over 1 billion customers each, including communication services like Gmail and YouTube. We take the insights we gain there and apply them to creating more effective systems of communication. And as we think about these more effective communication spaces, we believe the next wave of advances will come with machine learning. From Google CEO, machine learning is a core transformative way by which we are rethinking how we're doing everything. So let's spend some time to talk through some examples of how we can transform the communication space with machine learning. We'll start with setting up meetings. Our research shows that the average US office worker spends more than an hour each week scheduling meetings. That hour is pure distraction. But this doesn't have to be how we live. With machine learning, we can suggest best available times amongst meeting participants. This is a huge improvement over lining up calendars and trying to find the blank rectangles across the screen, especially when all the calendars don't fit on a single page. Or even better, why go to a calendar tab when I can do it in the context of a chat? Machine learning allows bots to schedule meetings with natural language like, schedule a meeting with Dan for tomorrow. identify the Dan you most likely want to meet with, and suggest a time. Bots can make these suggestions in the context of the conversation as well. So when a chat arrives proposing that we meet this week, the bot can automatically prompt an available time between the participants. In addition, don't leave the context of the conversation to get your schedule for the next week. A bot can do this for you. And this is all powered with machine learning. In addition to finding a time, we also need to find a space to meet. Today, meetings are too often delayed because a room cannot be found. Most interestingly, our research shows that 25% to 40% of booked meeting rooms end up not getting used and sit empty. So it's not a lack of space. It's that we aren't using the meeting room space we have efficiently. Machine learning can help solve problems associated with meeting room management. Things like when a one-on-one participant says she isn't coming, automatically cancel the meeting and the meeting room. One of the two participants has said no to the meeting. The meeting won't be happening. We can release the meeting space. Machine learning can also automatically get a more appropriately sized room when the attendee list increases or decreases. A 20-person meeting room shouldn't be occupied by just 6 people. It's not efficient. And vice versa, it's not productive for 15 people to cram into a space designed for 8. So we've talked a bit about scheduling meetings, but how is that time spent in those meetings? We dial in, but we can't all hear each other, and we can't see each other either. There's static on the line. Cameras aren't focused on the speaker, so we see a room of 20 tiny faces instead of the person actually talking. Again, enter machine learning. With machine learning, we can improve the listening experience. We can distinguish between static noise, background noise, keyboard clacking, or the crumpling of lunch wrappers, and make those silent. At the same time, we can amplify the voice of the speaker so that we can all pay attention to the conversation happening at hand. What about the visual experience? Well, we can auto-zoom on the meeting participants to make it easier to read facial expressions and body language, maintain eye contact with the meeting participants, and smoothly take turns in the conversation. We also know the participants have different bandwidth. We're dialing in from around the world. With machine learning, we can optimize the communication channel, both audio and video, based on your location and bandwidth. This means no more meeting interruptions from people on the go with a bad connection. And in our last example, we'll talk about taking meeting notes. I'm curious, who has heard this story before? The notes taken missed a key date and didn't record the exact words of the customers. So now, another meeting needs to be scheduled to follow up on something that was already decided. The team feels like they're going in circles instead of making forward progress. I know this has happened to me. Let's take a look at the future. We use a digital whiteboard with machine learning-based handwriting recognition to rapidly iterate on the notes. We could all write together at the same time and be equal participants in the meeting. Instead of just one person holding the pen, we all held the pen. And even more importantly, we can actually read each other's handwriting as it's translated to clear text. We also use machine learning to clean up our drawings. Because it's digital, it also means all of our notes were automatically saved and can be easily expanded in the future. And if we look further into the future, machine learning improved speech to text, so that a full transcript of the meeting was automatically produced. No more wondering about what was said or not typing fast enough to keep up with the conversation. Instead, everyone's attention can be focused on participating in the meeting itself. In all of these examples, from scheduling meetings with the help of bots to making sure the conversation is crisp by focusing the audio on the speaker and not on the background noise, we've used machine learning to foster communication. One final note about forecasting the future. It's critical to remember what doesn't change. The key in all business communications is to maximize human ingenuity. Get the junk stuff out of the way, give that to the machines, so that people can do what they do best, be creative.
All right. Thank you very much, Diane. So you described kind of how you can do this with machine learning. If for our folks out here who are making decisions for their enterprise organizations and trying to equip them for being able to do this, do you build an ROI case? Can you say if we're underutilizing these assets and this much time is wasted, somehow I can justify making an investment that includes machine learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a couple of parts to that question. I think one is there's obviously a pure ROI case that can be made in terms of time savings, not wasting 15 minutes dialing in at the beginning of the meeting, items along those lines. I think, though, there's a second part here, which is how machine learning and how G Suite fundamentally changes the way that you work. It gets the user and the employee out of the mindset of focusing on these mundane tasks and frees up time for truly creative driving activities, which is what you want to be thinking about. And so what we found at Google is that customers that adopt G Suite, they end up getting, they'll make an ROI case on time savings and things like that, but when you talk to them about why they're loving the product and how they're thinking about machine learning and ROI, they'll talk about in the ways that they've unlocked the potential inside their employees.
Well, it's a great point, and we talk about it a lot in other contexts here where it goes along with that sort of changing way that people work and trying to do that, and so it becomes kind of like a virtuous circle where the technology helps you and then that in turn improves the whole case. So kind of a related, real world problem issue that I think a lot of the audience has is I've got all this legacy gear, I've got these conference rooms that are set up the way they're set up now. Is there a way to kind of introduce this technology in a way that lets me not have to kind of throw all that out? And
yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two ways to think about kind of the legacy technology in the conference room space. One is that with machine learning and a lot of the improvements made, these are being made through software. And so a lot of the systems coming on the market, including the ones from Google, are often backwards compatible with those legacy systems on-premise and can unlock more potential in the technology that already exists. I think the second thing to consider is that, we're often very excited by what we purchased maybe 5 years ago and thought that it was at the time, it was the best-in-class, most optimal item on the market. But the improvements here are so dramatic, and the prices of these technologies are dropping so quickly that it's also potentially worthwhile considering if it's time to upgrade as well. So I think there's both a software piece, which is how does existing software improve my on-premise hardware, as well as thinking about new hardware improvements.
Okay. And then finally, I mean, you've mentioned the machine learning capabilities that Google Cloud has, and if I'm starting just as an enterprise person who's been working with a lot of legacy stuff to think about how do I even evaluate machine learning technology and what do I look for in machine learning technology and where do I get it from? How do I start that process of just analyzing what I need?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I think what I was hoping to get across in the conversation we just had is that machine learning is most helpful when it's solving a problem that exists in your business. And so the way we think about it at Google is, how do we take machine learning to improve the business capabilities that you need done day to day? And so as you're looking for vendors that have machine learning capabilities, really tie that back to what are the challenges that I'm facing in my business today, and how can machine learning be helping with those challenges? I think there's a second side to that question, which is we're seeing a tremendous growth and pace of how machine learning is changing these technologies. And so looking for a vendor who's going to be keeping up and accelerating with the pace that machine learning can be bringing in terms of technology improvements.
Okay. Well, Diane, thank you very much. It was terrific. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot.